Okay, I'm going to explain how I use the ball rescuer to test padel balls to see if they are still fit for playing a game. I've got on the left in the box balls which are ready for the bin. They are too soft. I've got 3 balls on the table open which are okay for playing, but which are all already been used for, let's say, 10 games. But they were always inside the ball rescuer coker to preserve them. It's clear that when you use this coker, you can use your balls 3, 4 or 5 times longer than when you don't use that case, the ball rescuer, inside the case with pressure on it. Because the pressure inside a ball is around 12 to 14 psi, and then you have the rubber, which also gives strength to the ball. In total, you can easily put 35 psi on the balls without that they collapse. It's a bit the same test as you would do with your finger. If you take the ball and you press it with your thumb, it really has to be hard to press them. If it goes too easy, then it's ready for the bin. But still, it's very difficult to have always the same muscle pressure on these balls, and not every person has the same strength. While if you use the ball rescuer, you get a number. First of all, let me explain the ball rescuer. You've got an indicator. If it's completely green, it gives 30 psi. You have a red and a yellow indicator. If you release the pressure this way, you see red is, if the red disappears, at that point there's around almost 20 psi. And if the yellow completely disappears, it's 30 psi. But the beauty is, with this ball rescuer, you also get a pump. And there's a clear indicator how much psi, while you're pumping, how much psi you put on the tube, the ball rescuer case. In a new coker, like I just bought one, and I took the balls out of the new coker and put them in my ball rescuers to keep them fresh, there's about 14 psi on it. 14 psi is more than enough to keep the balls in top condition. But for testing balls, like with my thumb, you have to put a lot more pressure on it to see whether they are fit for a game or not. And first I thought 30 psi was enough, but if you look at the new balls, they can easily stand 35 psi. So I started to put 35 psi on the case of the ball rescuer, either by pumping it, but that's quite labor intensive, or by using an automatic pump. Here you can see that 30 psi is about 2 bar, and 35 psi is around 2.5 bar. So I'm putting 2.5 bar, 35 psi, which is the maximum for this ball rescuer, on the tube to see if the balls are still okay for a game or not. All these balls, many of them were still okay at 30 psi, but they started to collapse with an indentation at 35 psi. So I decided to waste them. So now I'm going to show how we do it. These are the 2 new balls. You can see it fresh from the case. I've put on top one like this. In the middle, a ball which already has been used but still fit for games. And the bottom one is a worn down ball which will not be able to stand the 35 psi. So we open the valve where we put the pressure on it, like this. I'm going to use the automatic pump, which is much easier than pumping it with a pump delivered with the ball rescuer. And let's put some pressure on it. Watch the indicator here going from red to yellow to fully green. This is 2 bar. So you can see at 2 bar it's completely green. So if that means that the pressure in the ball rescuer is optimal. I'm going a bit further because you see the ball which I said was not okay anymore for playing at the bottom is still okay, it's still round. So if we now increase the pressure to 35 psi or 2.5 bar, you will see what happens. Hopla! So I'm not yet at 2.5, I'm at 2.2 bar. I'm going to 2.5 bar. Now we are at 2.5 bar, and you see the middle ball, which has been used already for I think 10 games, but was always inside a ball rescuer to keep it fit, is still okay at 35 psi or 2.5 bar. The new one of course as well, that's why I put it at the top. You can't see it well, but just there to show that that also withstands this pressure. In fact, it is the maximum pressure you can put on this tube because it's completely hard. You cannot press it anymore. So it's a lot of pressure we put on the balls now, much more than what I can do with my thumb. And you can see the bottom one has collapsed. It was okay at 30 psi, but not okay at a bit more. So I decided these balls to throw them away. If I do the bouncing test, I put my hands above my head as high as possible and let fall down the balls together with the new one. You can see that this one will not bounce back as much as the new one, but the middle one bounces back as much as the new one. So that's really proving that 35 psi is the best test to see if you have to throw away your ball or not. In this way, many people throw their balls away too soon. And it's bad for the environment, it's bad for your wallet, you're spending more money than needed. So if you use this one, the ball rescuer, in this test, you really know when to throw away your padel ball. I'm going to put my really fresh new balls inside my ball rescuer to keep them fit for the games. So you see with my thumb it's very difficult to press it. Many people do it with all their fingers, but then you can put a lot pressure on, much more pressure, and it's more difficult to feel because you're pushing with 4 fingers. Better with your thumb only. And a freshly new ball, freshly from the case, which was under pressure in the shop, is really very hard to push. And when you played 3 to 4 games with it, it will be more like this, a bit easier to push, but still okay for playing a game. By the way, if you play in winter, the rubber is harder than in summertime, so the balls will be bouncing and will be harder and bouncing more in winter than in summer with the same internal pressure. As I said, internal pressure 14 psi. With the rubber, together with the rubber, you can put 35 psi on the exterior of the ball before it starts to deform and collapse. I'm going to put now my new balls in the ball rescuer and put about 20 psi on it. The same like the case in the shop. Apparently people on the internet you can find that they contain about 14 psi. I'm going to put 20 psi on the coker, on the case, on the ball rescuer to preserve them in the best condition. Voila, 2 bar or almost 30 psi. In time the coker will lose some pressure and it will certainly stay above 15 psi, so I keep my balls in best condition. If you release something like this with the screw thread, there will be some pressure lost, and you can see it's a little bit yellow but not red. The red should always be disappeared. If you have a little bit yellow, that means that your pressure is between 20 and 30 psi, which is more than sufficient to keep the balls in the best condition.